Сегодня мы слышим, что нас хотят победить на поле боя. Ну, что здесь скажешь? Пусть попробуют.
As an economic war on Russia, which is now the most sanctioned country in the world.
The Russian economy is doing better than expected. What was expected? A collapse of the Russian system. At least that's what the West had expected. Russian gas supplies to Europe are down by 80%. Russia could single-handedly push Europe into recession. This gas war threatens governments and leaders in the EU, and Europe has virtually no defense.
Hi everybody! Ever since the Russia-Ukraine war has started, it has erupted a critical economic war between Russia, Europe and the US. While on one side Russia took its forces into Ukraine and started capturing territories, US and Europe have imposed heavy sanctions to cripple the Russian economy. Russian goods were banned, billion-dollar businesses like MCD and Zara quit the Russian markets, Russia is banned from the SWIFT network, their forex has been frozen, and the West even started forcing other nations to stop trading with Russia. So with the opposition of the most powerful country on the planet and the European Union, it was expected that Putin will withdraw from Ukraine and Russia will accept defeat after the economic turmoil. But you know what guys, although Russia got affected, Putin has played the Game of Thrones of geopolitics so well that now Europe is facing an economic crisis. Annual inflation rate of energy has touched a record high of 41.9%. Food inflation has touched 10.4%, and now the GDP growth of 27 countries is slowing down because of Russia. And you know what? The worst is still yet to come to Europe because winter is coming. The question is, with all the support from the US, in spite of being a cluster of 27 countries, in spite of not waging a war at all, how did Europe end up in such a terrible state? What exactly is Putin's war strategy to choke Europe? And lastly, how is this Game of Thrones affecting the economy of India? This video is brought to you by Deserve, but more on this at the end of the video. To understand this, we first have to understand the basics of modern warfare. You see guys, this war is being fought with three instruments: food, finance and energy. And if you look at Europe's trade with Russia and Ukraine, you will see that as far as finance is concerned, Europe has done its part to choke the Russian economy. Like we saw in the past 4 months, US froze $300 billion of foreign reserves of Russia, EU imposed a 35% tax on Russian vodka, Russian gold imports were banned, and many billion-dollar businesses like McD, Coke and Starbucks started exiting the Russian markets. So because of this, there was a huge lacuna left in the Russian economy that started shaking its foundations. So it was expected that Russia will near bankruptcy, and with the fear of a complete economic collapse, Putin would withdraw from the war. But, although Europe was winning with finance, with the other two aspects, Europe is getting into some deep trouble. If you look at food, Russia and Ukraine account for almost 30% of the global wheat exports, almost 20% of corn exports, and more than 80% of the world's supply of sunflower oil. So the moment the supply of these commodities got cut off, the food prices in Europe started to skyrocket. And as far as energy is concerned, this is where Russia's most powerful leverage against Europe comes in. Because you know what guys, in 2020, 42% of Europe's gas came from Russia, and the key to that lies in something called the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. This pipeline is by far one of the most important pipelines in the world, and if you look at the map, Nord Stream 1 is a 1,224 kilometer underwater gas pipeline that runs from Vyborg in the northwest Russia to northeastern Germany via the Baltic Sea. The construction of this pipeline was done at a cost of 7.4 billion euros and was a joint venture between the Russian gas company Gazprom and 4 other Western partners. And if you look at the map, you will realize what a miracle this pipeline is. This pipeline transports 55 billion cubic meters of gas a year, most of which directly goes to Germany, and then from Germany, there are several pipelines that take it to the rest of the countries in Europe. And you will see that most of these countries were and still are heavily dependent on Russian gas. In 2020, while Finland, Bulgaria and Slovakia had more than 70% of gas supply from Russia, even Germany, which is the largest European economy, had 49% of its gas coming from Russia. So when Europe imposed sanctions on Russia, Putin did two important things. Number one, he cut the gas supply to Europe by 60%, and secondly, he put forth a condition saying that if European companies want to buy oil and gas from Russia, they will have to buy oil in rubles. And because of this, there were three major implications on the world trade. Number one, since Russia cut 60% supply of gas, the gas prices all across the world skyrocketed, and this was because of the supply-demand mismatch. Now people, if you understand how trade prices are affected due to supply-demand mismatch, please skip to this timestamp. But for those who don't know, here's a very simple explanation of the same. Let's say there are 5 major countries supplying 100 billion cubic meters of gas, which are Russia, Norway, US, Qatar and Australia, with each of them having their own market share and their own average prices. Now if Russia stops the supply, although other nations can pump more gas at the exact same price, they will take advantage of the situation and will increase the price of gas and make more profits by supplying the exact same amount of gas. So if Norway sells gas at $40 per unit, instead of doubling its supply and making $80 for 2 units, it will increase the price to $160 per unit and make 4 times more money by selling the same amount of gas. This way, they will have more margins, more profit, and less natural resources will be exhausted. This is the reason why even though other countries can match the shortfall, the price of the commodity shoots up to insane levels. In this case, if you look at the numbers, since January 2022, the gas prices in the US have gone up by 37% in spite of they not buying any gas from Russia. In UK, it has gone up by 142%, and in the European Union, it has gone up by an insane 144%. Secondly, since Russia forced the companies to buy oil and gas with rubles, if you see the value of rubles, it started shooting up, making ruble one of the best performing currencies in the world. But as far as Europe is concerned, energy prices started to increase in Europe, because of which every single industry's cost of production increased, and eventually inflation continued to rise all across European Union. And according to Eurostat, the inflation touched 9.6% in Europe in the month of June. Industrial prices have risen more than 36% in the last 1 year, and electricity bills for the citizens of Europe are going over the roof. On top of that, the food price inflation has accelerated to 7.5% in May 2022, which is the highest in the last 20 years. And you know what is the most mind-shattering fact of all? All these sanctions were meant to kill the Russian trade and prevent Russia from making money, right? But as it turns out, Russia actually made more money selling gas after the war than it did before the war. The question is, how? Very simple. Just like I explained before, when Russia cut the supply of gas, European companies were desperate to pay 50, 60, sometimes even 100% more money for the exact same amount of gas. Because without gas, European economy would have collapsed. And same is the case with oil, wherein the prices spiked from $65 to more than $100 per barrel. This is the reason why Russia was making more money in spite of sending less gas to Europe. And if you look at the revenue of Russia from Europe from oil and gas, you will see that the average during normal years from March to July was close to $50 billion. But in 2022, this revenue has almost doubled to more than $90 billion. In fact, Russia's oil and gas export revenues in just the last 5 months is almost 3 times of what it would typically make from exporting gas to Europe over an entire winter. Secondly, because of India and China's support to Russia, Russia has also been able to make up for the oil revenue losses from Europe. According to Rystad Energy, while Russian crude oil sales to Europe dropped by 554,000 barrels a day, Asian refiners increased their take by 503 barrels a day, which became a one-on-one replacement for the losses between March to May. This is the reason why Europe has been constantly pressurizing India to stop buying Russian oil, because apparently when we buy oil, we are funding the war, but when they buy oil, they are doing it for their economy.
If you are looking at energy purchases from Russia, I would suggest that your attention should be focused on Europe. But I suspect, looking at the figures, probably our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon. So you might want to think about it.
And in spite of playing all these political games, European Union is choking because, like I said, winter is coming for Europe. Now, if you look at the gas consumption of Europe throughout the year, you will see that from February to August, the gas consumption in Europe actually decreases. But from September onwards, this consumption starts shooting up and reaches its peak in December. This is mainly because of the use of heater and other devices due to extreme cold weathers. And now, Europe is extremely worried because if Russia stops supplying gas, it will be a nightmare both for the economy and the people of Europe. And even storage of gas cannot fix this problem. This is a graph that shows how much gas Europe will have if Russia cuts off gas supply. And here you will see that if Russia cuts off gas in October, gas levels will touch dangerous levels within just 90 days in spite of having 90% storage in October. Now the question over here is, why is Europe so dependent on Russia? They are not the only ones supplying oil and gas, right? For gas you have United States, Qatar and Norway, and for oil you already have Saudi Arabia. Then why not buy oil and gas from them? Well, here's where, ladies and gentlemen, the complex reality of world trade comes in. You see, LNG gas needs a lot of terminal facilities wherein fuel can be turned from liquid to a gaseous state, and then it needs a huge network of pipelines that can transport the gas to different parts of the continents. But if you look at the map of Europe, you will see that although Europe has a lot of terminal facilities, most of them do not have connected pipelines to distribute them across Europe. So even if US ships more gas to Europe, the continent may struggle to receive it, and with the given state, even if all of Europe's facilities were operating at full capacity, the amount of gas is likely to be only 2/3 of what Russia delivers through pipelines. So in spite of being a super rich, super powerful country, the US and Qatar cannot help Europe unless they spend another $1 billion and build these pipelines before winter. And this is practically impossible because Nord Stream 1 alone took 6 years to be built. This is the reason why the Nord Stream 1 pipeline is considered to be one of the most important pipelines in the world. And when it comes to Norway, they are already operating at peak level, so again, matching up to Russian supply shortage is quite difficult. And lastly, for oil, Saudi Arabia outright has rejected the request to increase their production of oil for two reasons. Number one, they are Russian allies, and secondly, when they are getting super high prices for oil, then why would they decrease it by pumping more oil? So Saudi is making a ton of money because of the shortage, and as usual, they just love it. So this means in spite of all the sanctions, pressure and propaganda, Europe is still at the mercy of Russia for the winter. And this is the reason why the winter of 2022 could be the deciding round of this economic war between three of the most powerful entities of the world. This is the story of the Game of Thrones of geopolitics that is being played between Russia, Europe and the United States. And this brings me to the last part, and that is, how will this war and inflation in Europe affect India? Before we move on, I want to thank our partners Deserve for supporting our content. People, many of us these days, while realizing the importance of investing, we have been investing based on the advice from our family members, colleagues or YouTube influencers. Or we do it through some random research online. But while doing this, most of us don't understand the information that we're actually willing to bet our money on. So we end up making investments that may not be best suited for our portfolio or our risk appetite. As a result, there is really no one to turn to when things go wrong. This is the reason why most people end up losing their hard-earned money. So you tell me, with the demands of a successful full-time career, is it really possible to manage your investments yourself? Very difficult, right? Well, this is where Deserve comes in, wherein they have created a unique integrated portfolio approach, or IPA, to bring their members a portfolio of investments personalized to your investment style and risk appetite. The IPA is built by experts who have decades of experience over several market cycles and is based on modern portfolio science. And this entire process is dynamic. So if the markets change, your portfolio adapts to that change. So just like you get doctors for medical help, teachers for learning, get real experts to invest for yourself with Deserve. So if this sounds useful to you, use the link in the description to start investing with Deserve. Moving on to the implications of this war and the European crisis on India, the first problem that we are facing is the depletion of foreign reserves because of increasing oil prices and increasing cost of imports. And if you remember from our Adani episode, palm oil prices have risen because Indonesia is facing an over demand. Sunflower oil prices are over the roof because most of it comes from Russia and Ukraine. So every single industry from FMCG to restaurants are being affected due to this war. Secondly, during this time of crisis, we are taking big risky steps that the West might not be happy about. We are supporting Russia, which might backfire once the war fades away. And like we saw in our previous episodes, RBI is internationalizing the rupee to trade with Russia. We are buying Russian oil, and after a certain point, this might just annoy the West and they might start imposing secondary sanctions on us. And lastly, on the positive note, because Ukraine was the wheat basket of Europe and both Russia and Ukraine were major food exporters, the supply shortage has benefited our exports of wheat, mustard, barley, cotton and soybean. And apart from that, I'll attach a list of all the other benefits that India is actually getting from this entire war. So have a look at all the study materials from the link in the description and let me know what you think. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.